Rock and roll.
So how are you doing today, Sandra? You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's great to be back and chatting about the game. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with us today.
Oh, anytime.
So obviously it's been a couple of weeks since the game has come out and you're beginning to see all those reactions, and it seems that Miss Marvel and your performance are what people are really gravitating towards. So how does it feel?
Uh, it feels great. It feel like I love that. I mean, I'm not really surprised that people are relating to Kamala because she's such a relatable character. And, like we've all been there. We've all been, in high school and, fangirls and fanboys and fan people of something. And so I, I love that they love her. And it's been really nice to kind of connect with fans and to kind of hear what everyone has to say about it. It's been really fun.
Yeah. And going back a little bit earlier in the process when you were cast, what was that process like for you? Was it a series of auditions or did you land the role immediately?
It was a long series of auditions. Um, and in this, I take great pride in, I'm really, I really respect Marvel for this. Like they don't just pick anybody. And of course, Crystal and Square and everybody involved, they were looking for the actress to play Kamala Khan for a few years before they found me. So when I had initially auditioned, like, it's pretty secretive. So I didn't know what really it was for. I didn't know if it was for a game or a Marvel thing. I didn't know anything. So when I auditioned, I was kind of just like, all right, cool. Like this character is, I got to know the character for who she was, and that was really cool. And after auditioning once, like I got a call maybe like a week or so later, or a couple weeks later, and they're like, oh, hey, like, can you come back and do another audition? I was like, okay, sure. That was fun. Let's do it again. So I went back in with new scripts and where this character was talking to new people. So I didn't know that in the first scene that I auditioned with that she was talking to Thor. And then the next scene she was talking to Iron Man. I just thought she was talking to a dude named Tom. Like I had no idea. And so then I came back again for a callback and then for another callback. And then I had a Skype session with like Sean, our director, and like his assistants and everything. And I was like, what is this? And I didn't like find out until after I was cast, obviously, but it was a really fun process, just the audition process and knowing how much everybody who works on this game cares about the people cast is a pretty big deal. So I'm honored.
Yeah. And what made you a Muslim superhero who isn't defined by that? Obviously, she also doesn't shy away from it. And in the game, we see her talking openly about her religion. How important was that for you?
I think it's really important for everybody who needs to feel the embrace of what they are, to see a character who does embrace that she is Muslim and is Pakistani and that she's 16 and that she's all these other things that she is. Just like all of the wonderful things that her father teaches her throughout the game, you see her really embrace that as well. So she doesn't shy away from her religion. She doesn't shy away from, these wonderful teachings. I think it's really great for people who are especially trying to come into their own. I mean, who isn't learning more and more about themselves every day? So I think having this character is very empowering to those people. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I know some of my favorite moments in the game is where it's like when she's talking to Tony Stark and she's explaining the cultural significance of her costume. Was it important for little moments like that to be included in the game for you?
I think for everyone who does, yeah, I think when in anything that you watch that's trying to have like, a cute little teaching moment, and they do it right, it's really important. And I think Marvel is really, really good at that, is having these like nice little teaching moments tastefully. When I remember I watched that scene And I definitely got teary because you don't see stuff like that, especially not in games. And for it to be coming from a young woman, not like, you don't see her parents teaching Tony Stark this. You see her doing it. And so that gives you a little bit, a little bit of power too, watching this young woman come into her own and teach her hero about something that he doesn't know either.
Yeah. And I spoke to Nolan North a little earlier this week, and he was saying how much you inspired him with your enthusiasm. So
Did he really?
he did. Yeah, he had nothing but good things to say.
Oh.
And he was saying that working with you, as I said, inspired him as well. But what was it like for you coming in and being surrounded by these veteran voice actors, who many of whom, like Nolan, are considered almost legends in the video game world? What was that like for you?
I mean, as you can see, I'm pretty excited. Nolan is very, very special because, as you know, he's worked on like a billion different projects, but yet he still has those moments with a new actor like myself where he learns, and that just kind of shows you that like our job is never over. We're always learning every day, and while these people that I've worked with are a really big deal, they're also super awesome, and it kind of mirrors Kamala's relationship with Iron Man and Kamala's relationship with all these Avengers. Is, you never expect to meet your heroes, but when you do, you hope for the best, and a lot of people don't get the best, but she does, and so did I. Like I got these true gentle people like like Nolan North who aren't afraid to be inspired by a new actress like myself. So it's very, very cool.
And I know obviously with a game like this, performance capture is a big part of what you do as well. So, and another thing Nolan said, being Iron Man, he had to stand there pretending to take off on his tiptoes. But
Yeah.
what was it like for you, obviously, with Miss Marvel's powers? How weird was that for you, having to act out those scenes out?
Right, because this is the first time you're really seeing Kamala Khan with these abilities, right? So I didn't really have something to watch. Like maybe perhaps like in another game, you kind of picture what Iron Man looks like doing that, but I didn't really have very much. So I definitely deferred to the comic books and talks with Sean, our director, about what that might look like and what Crystal Dynamics was planning for those abilities. So when he's like, okay, your hand's in big, and I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? And we talk about what visually that looks like. So then for me, that informs my movements. Yeah, those talks with Sean, and also watching everyone else with their abilities, right? It helps me. So, but yeah, those talks with Sean are very, very important.
And we don't see Captain Marvel in this game, but I'm sure, as you know, in the comic books, Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel have that real great relationship. So is that something you hope to explore maybe somewhere down the line?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, because that's where she gets her name, right? Like she's a huge fangirl of Captain Marvel. And even in A-Day, when you see her chat about it with Cap, do you remember that scene?
Yes, yeah.
Where he's like, well, Carol isn't here, but she loved your outfit or whatever. Oh my God, I would love to explore that relationship too, because like, as you've seen in the story, like Crystal Dynamics has really handled those relationships very well. Like Kamala's relationship with Thor is very different from Kamala's relationship with Iron Man and so forth. So yeah, I'm excited to see what other possibilities there are for these new these other heroes and relationships.
Yeah, and the game really takes a deep dive into the comic books with things with a villain like MODOK, and obviously talking about Terrigen and things like that. So how prepared were you beforehand? Did you go back and read a lot of comic books and read up on what to expect, or was it just all very foreign to you when you were cast?
Well, since this is like an original story, I knew that I couldn't really I could only look for so much in the comics, but I did go back and read as many comics as I could get my hands on. At first, when I found out what it was and when I found out that I'd be playing Miss Marvel, I went out and I bought whatever physical copies I could at comic book shops that were near, like, I did a lot of like Groundlings and UCB comedy in Los Angeles, and they have, you know, like comic book stores really close. So as soon as I'd be done with a class or a show, I would just go right in and read up as much as I can and buy whatever I could until I got like Marvel Unlimited. And that's like unlimited amount of comics. So I read as much as I could, but I ultimately did focus on our own version of the story.
Yeah, definitely. And I was wondering, how soon after you were cast did you realize that Kamala would be the lead of the game? Something I think surprised a lot of fans, but obviously since it's come out, they've just been blown away by how good the character was.
When I was on set, I realized that like I was in a lot of scenes. I was in probably 95% of the scenes, and I was like, huh. Well, they probably come in another day when I'm not here, and they probably do their own scenes. And that's just kind of what I thought. But then a makeup artist, one of my awesome makeup artists, Megan Williams, on set was like, hey, you're number one on the call sheet. I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. That probably means like I show up before everyone else. She's like, no, that means you're the lead. And I was like, no, that can't be right. I'm working with Troy and Nolan. Like, and she was like, no, that's what it means. Believe me, when the game comes out, you're going to find out and you're going to remember what I said. And that's kind of like that what I'm thinking now. But yeah, of course, like throughout this whole process, I always kind of figured that there were pieces of the puzzle that I was missing, but I wasn't. And so now that like I've watched all these cines put together and I've played the game, now I realize like what it actually is, even though everyone's been telling me like, hey, you're the lead. That's why you're in every single scene we're doing.
And with obviously with Miss Marvel, we've not really seen her in, she's got a TV show in the works, but we've not seen her in much at all really, maybe the odd cartoon or like a cameo in another video game. So how much freedom did you have to come in and make the character your own?
A pretty good amount. Sean likes to remind me, and also like my castmates and a lot of people on set already like to remind me that I'm already kind of like Kamala, so I don't need to do very much research. I didn't need to go very far in my acting or whatever. So it was pretty easy to just kind of, just interact with everyone else and then take direction as it comes.
And obviously playing a character ever so slightly younger than yourself, what sort of challenges does that present as like a voice actor?
It's like, well, with young Kamala, who you first meet on A-Day, she's 11 years old, right?
Yeah.
5 days before, 5 years before 16. So I definitely aged her down a lot. And they were like, you already sound like a kid. Just take it off. You're fine. And so I just talked like myself and they were like, perfect. But you'll definitely hear in some scenes, like I do kind of age it back down to where like I think it's appropriate. But Sean and I have a pretty good conversation about that too. So not very hard. I think voice actors are pretty good at that. Like you'll notice with like Troy or Nolan or Laura or any of these guys, like they sound pretty different in everything they do. So
absolutely. And something that really stood out to me in the game was how great those character interactions are. And Kamala, we see develop relationships with all of the Avengers really, but obviously Bruce Banner is someone she spends a lot of time with. So what were those scenes like for you and working with Troy Barker?
Oh, Troy is such a good actor. He loves the craft so much. He brings this book with him on set to read all the time, and he just takes it seriously. And it's nice to work with another actor who cares about this craft as much as you do. And just as well with Nolan, like he cares about it so much too, but he's like, he cracks jokes all the time, so it comes out a little bit differently, which I'm sure you noticed in your interview with him. But working with Troy and all of those scenes, Kamala and him have a lot in common. right? Because they're both, you know, they both have this power that they're kind of like trying to toggle with, and it's been really cool watching Troy kind of like start to turn green. You know, there are those scenes where he like his eyes turn green, and you're like, oh no. But it's been really fun kind of watching him go between Banner and the Hulk and like wrestle with this monstrous thing within himself, and also have those conversations with me and with Sean. The thing about Troy too is he loves to kind of like pull you aside and talk about it, like just like from actor to actor, and like how we're feeling about this and what we're comfortable with. And yeah, it's everything. That's why I'm telling, like, I can't prepare too much before going in, because everything changes on that stage. Whatever Troy and I talk about right before going in for another take, or you know, or whatever like Sean will give us right before going in, it just changes everything. So yeah, can't prepare too much.
And in terms of scenes that stood out to you that were particularly memorable, do you have any favorites now you've gone back and maybe played a bit of the game? Was there anything that surprised you that you were really impressed by?
It's just really nice to see everything in order. Because you know, when we're shooting, we shoot kind of like, you know, we shoot out of order sometimes, and then you're like, okay, well, this part, like the scene that comes before, like we shot a while ago, so like you know, so it's nice to kind of watch everything strung together. For me, I really like the scenes with Yusuf Khan, with Abu, because they're really, he's so wise in the things that he teaches her. And the other day I was watching that scene where she accidentally calls him when she says, "Oh, Jarvis, like I wish I could just call Abu," and he's like, "Calling Yusuf Khan," and she's like, "No, no, don't." And he like leaves this beautiful like message where, you know, where he thinks, you know, he's leaving the message or whatever, and he's like, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry if I made you feel like you couldn't use your powers or whatever, but I accept you and I want you to accept yourself." And there's just so much wisdom about that man, and kind of hearing his lines over and over. And when like Kamala takes those lines and she learns from them herself, I think it's really special. And they've taught me too to like appreciate the things about me that make me different. Like there's some amazing morals in this game. That, and do you remember that scene with Dante?
Yes, yeah.
That one was really special too, because you see Kamala be like, "Oh yeah, your powers are really cool," like taking the thing that like Abu was teaching her, right? Like you can embrace your powers, you can embrace yourself, and she's trying to do it with another kid, and he's like, "No, no, no, no. They took my mom, and you know, and I'm a freak now too, and whatever." And so that was like a really nice like learning moment for her too, and that kind of like propels her into finding the other Inhumans. And yeah, there's all those like really nice teaching moments for me. I like.
And another favorite moment of mine comes a little later in the game with the Avengers Assemble scene with Captain America. How much fun is it when you're all on set together and you're riffing back and forth in scenes like that? Are you able to maybe improvise a little bit, or are you just having fun?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like who would put a person like Nolan North and me and like all of these people together and not expect us to go off script a little bit? It's really nice to see later on, like being like, "Oh wait, that's not a line that was in the script. Oh, they kept that. They thought it was funny. Cool." It's awesome because yeah, these guys are pros, and yeah, it really pays off in the end. It's fun.
Definitely. And coming on, but I know you've been part of quite a few big video game franchises before Avengers, but with Avengers being so huge now, thanks to the movies, did you feel that extra little bit of pressure coming onto this one?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a really big fan of Marvel too. And of course, movies, and of course, I know that like the comics are legendary. So I wanted to do right by the creators, and yeah, like Sana. created Kamala Khan, and she's basically Kamala Khan. And I just want to make sure that everything was like I honored her, her vision for her, and just as well with all the fans, right? Like Kamala already has fans, so I wanted to make sure to do them justice. But yeah, I definitely felt that pressure. As soon as I found out that I was going to play Miss Marvel, I was like, Miss what? Miss Marvel? Like as in like Marvel's Avengers? Okay. Definitely felt that pressure.
Yeah, and looking ahead to the future, are there any other video game franchises you have your eye on that you'd like to maybe become part of down the line?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like there's so much going on right now that I can't look too far into the future and get myself too excited. Um, as for now, I'm just really happy to be a part of the Marvel family, and I look forward to seeing what else goes from here. And meantime, I'm just hoping to keep telling great stories and to keep playing strong women like Kamala Khan.
Yeah, that must have been pretty incredible. Obviously, you mentioned strong women. Even though she's quite young, she is in many ways the strongest character in the game because she brings together the Avengers, these powerful characters who just seem broken at this point. So that was it satisfying on that in that respect as well to be able to play that strong female role.
Yeah, and especially when you're a teenager, you're kind of like coming into yourself already. So seeing her like moments of weakness and her kind of push through them to do what she thinks is right, and like in her own like fangirly, sweet, feminine way, show the Avengers how much she believes in them, is really powerful. I think there is such a power in like fangirls in general. And to work alongside Jolene Anderson, who plays Monica Rappaccini, and of course Laura, is really really cool. But oh my God, watching those two transform into their characters too. So I think this game does a really really great job at character development, and I've heard Jolene talk about how powerful it is to play like a villain of such magnitude with Monica Rappaccini. She's very very smart, and with Kamala too. So it's really nice to play such a passionate, strong young girl.
Yeah, we know that more Avengers content is coming over the next few months. So are you finished with your commitments to the game, or are you anticipating going back to record anything additional?
I'm anticipating going on as long as as the fans and as long as the developers think we should. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure, but I do know that, like they promised in the War Table, that there will be new characters coming. So we'll see.
Yeah. And with the TV series coming up, is that something you're looking forward to seeing? And how does it feel to know that whoever does end up getting cast as Miss Marvel is going to be looking potentially at your performance for inspiration, as you really are the first Miss Marvel a lot of people have seen on any sort of screen?
Uh, Very cool. I'm just so glad that people get to continue to be inspired by this character in however medium. I know that, like we mentioned before, of course, there were the comics, and, the people who read comic books were inspired by her. And, there are all these fans now from just the comics. And then the younger crowd, like, gets to be inspired by her through the cartoon. And then now, like, anyone who plays video games or watches cities or is, will, be involved with our game. And then now people who watch TV are going to be inspired by her as well. So in whatever medium it is, I'm just glad that people are going to be introduced to Kamala.
Yeah, it is great to see the way the character has really just leaked out the comics in recent years, because I think it was such a bold thing when she was introduced, being that first Muslim superhero to lead a comic book of her own. So it must be pretty incredible just to be part of that, however big or small it ends up being.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that this is not only um, something that's accepted, but it's something that's really embraced. And like you said, she left off of the comic books and now has got like this huge video game that she's fronting. She's fronting the Avengers game, and so yeah, it's really cool to see people fall in love with her so much.
And have you finished the game yourself, or have you just maybe done a little bit of it, or?
I did a little bit of it. I've been trying to play. Like, I'm not a very skilled gamer, but I try. And yeah, I love it. Every once in a while, I'll get stuck. I just remember I was like on the bridge and like Hulk just kept falling, and then I had to call my neighbor over and be like, "Hey, can you get me through this?" And he's like, "Okay," so he'll figure it out and play, and I'll be like, "Okay, go away now." Keep playing.
It must be very surreal for you. Obviously, if this was a film or TV show, you could just go back and watch that. But with your performance being captured in the game, it must be quite something to almost take control of yourself and hear these lines coming out of this character you're controlling.
Yeah, and then depending on what happens, my lines change. So yeah, interactive me is very fun.
And one final question for you. We've obviously seen a lot of merchandise for the game, whether it's Funko Pops or action figures. How does it feel to see yourself as an action figure?
uh, I didn't know until a friend of mine got his, and he was like, "Hey, can you sign something for me?" And he came over to let me sign the Funko Pop, and I was like, "Is that me?" He's like, "You didn't know these existed?" I was like, "No." So then he just mailed me one, and I was like, "Oh, cool." So it's it's very surreal. I like on my birthday, like another friend of mine got me another like Marvel's Avengers Kamala thing, and I was like, "Oh, there's so much of it." So just like we said, knowing that like so many people are experiencing this character in so many different ways is very awesome.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for taking the time to have a chat with me. I thought you were phenomenal in the game, and I can't wait for hopefully for a sequel and to see Miss Marvel come back into the spotlight because you really were phenomenal in the role.
Thank you so much, Josh. I look forward to it too.
Awesome. We'll speak to you again soon. Stay safe. Thanks so much.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.